Today we're going over a very brief video about how I assembled and put together my force of older classic Space Marines. One of my favorite things to do is buy really cheap older Marines on eBay, any Facebook, my local game store, anywhere. Because it gives me a lot of options to be able to mess around and play with a kit that's not a $60 for 5 Primaire Space Marine set. It's a very inexpensive and budget-friendly way to expand your army. A lot of times I get these minis for 50 cents a piece, maybe $1 or $2 a piece. Most people are pretty willing to part with these guys out of their collections. For these particular models, I also was able to get a hold of a large bits lot, so I was testing out and playing with a bunch of different bits. And I do need some heavy weapons guys, since none of my infantry options right now have anything that can take out a vehicle. Plus, these guys with their little autoloader missile backpacks have always been a favorite of mine. They're so cute looking. Moving on, after I assembled and based all these guys, I go ahead and prime them with my airbrush, which is definitely one of my favorite uses. I used to use rattle cans, and they do work, but even some of the best rattle cans still build up a pretty thick layer of paint when priming, whereas airbrushing, it's a very smooth and very flat coat. I've never airbrushed a model to the point where any details ever got clogged. I absolutely love it, and if you can afford it or have the space for it, an airbrush is definitely a good tool to have in your mini painting arsenal. It can make things a lot faster. And this airbrush isn't even all that great. The original one I got is a compressor and brush combo that I got off of Amazon for like $80, I believe, maybe even less. And it's a compact little box, and the spray gun that it came with is nice and big and easy for priming. However, I did get the Badger 106 Professional, I believe, for Christmas, and so that's the gun that I've switched to, and even that one I believe is just about $130. So for less than $200 you can get a pretty decent airbrush kit. I also like to prime all my minis in black to give me those shadows, and I've seen some results that I've been pretty happy with by doing the white or gray zenithal. This is the gray Vallejo primer, but honestly, especially on black, it looks white. It's very close to a pure white looking color, and with it contrasted on the black, even with it being a little bit gray, it still reads as white. But again, this is a quick way to prime. I think I have 32 Space Marines in this batch, and it took me probably half an hour to do all this, maybe an hour after letting them dry and doing the zenithal. Here we're going to use the Vallejo Game Air, their Ultramarine Blue. It's a really nice vibrant color, and once it dries it comes out as a nice flat base. I have also tried in a different setting to use Citadel's Ultramarine Blue contrast paint, and I just don't like it. Like, they come out just too dark, because right now these guys they're gonna look very bright blue, almost like a royal blue. But once it dries, it does darken up a little and gets flat, and it's a very nice mid-tone blue to work with. It's not too dark and it's not too bright. It's not my shadow color and it's not my highlight color. It's very much a mid-tone blue. That's why I prefer this over Citadel's. And here's everybody primed up in that beautiful, beautiful blue color. Because I do paint and play Ultramarines, because I am a basic white girl. Look at them boys. Here I'm just giving everybody's belts and leather bits a bit of coverage from Rhinox hide. Rhinox hide is definitely one of my most used colors from Citadel. I didn't think it would be, but there's so much brown to be had between belts and little ammo packets and holsters and stuff. Tons of brown stuff to paint all the time. I use it a lot. It's also a super good base coat. A comparable color that I tend to use, it's a little bit brighter, but is Vallejo model color flat brown. It's a pretty good stand-in for that. Then here I moved on to using some gold. This is what I started with, was Vallejo's Game Color Metallic Gold. Well, Polished Gold is the actual name. And I do really like that particular color. It's a good color once it's a couple coats have been on and it's dried, but it's nowhere near as good as Citadel's Retributor Gold. It just doesn't cover as well, and it's not as punchy and pigmented. But I do have a Primaris Captain Lieutenant guide that I'm working on, and I did use this Vallejo Polished Gold color on all his stuff, and it looks great. It's just not very good, in my opinion, for just regular line troops, Space Marines, whatever. I'll probably only be using it on character models, and it definitely needs a base coat of something silver first, which sometimes I do a lot of with my gold and sometimes I don't, but a lot of times a good solid layer of lead belcher or any other metallic silverish gray color seems to work very well for putting a gold color or any other color over it, because lead belcher almost always covers in one coat. It's nice and thick, looks very shiny. So then really what I'm doing after that, if I add a different color, is kind of just tinting that lead belcher to the gold color or copper color that I'm actually looking for. And most of the time I feel like that works better than having to go over it with a coat or two of any of the other metallic colors that a lot of times it takes to get good coverage. Here what I was doing was just coating the little backpack pieces in my lead belcher. Another one of, in addition to Retributor Gold, or Retributor Armor, whatever, lead belcher is also one of my most used Citadel paints. Even though I tend to enjoy more Proacryl or Vallejo, lead belcher, Retributor Armor, and Rhinox hide are still, in my opinion, kind of the best of those colors from Citadel. So I still use those instead of using some from other paint suppliers or paint companies right now. Next, this is where I decided I really didn't like the flat and little coverage that I was getting out of Vallejo's polished gold color. So this is when I went ahead and switched over to Citadel's Retributor Armor gold color. Again, a very nice, somewhat thick, pigmented gold color. It just looks really good, really bright, especially for my line soldiers here.
some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, well, I don't wanna jinx it, baby, and twist myself at the spine. Don't wanna overthink it, baby. It's just twist your body and mine. Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, but I don't wanna jinx it, baby. Let's not get ahead of my time. Oh, but I don't wanna miss you, baby. So I stand up and speak.
Next, we've moved on to painting red on all the purity seals. And for whatever reason, the red on the purity seal wax is one of my least favorite things to paint. I just can't ever seem to get them right as far as adding shadows and highlights, so they tend to always end up looking like one little red blob. Maybe one day I'll figure out how to get those guys painted up right to look a little bit better.
You're chilling wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're channeling wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, 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 oh,
Here I'm just trying to get the eye lenses right. Again, another thing that I really need to work on that I haven't gotten quite right yet is painting lenses and or eyes. No matter how thin I try to get my paintbrush and how pointy of a tip, I still have such a hard time painting them. So that's one of the things that we're going to be working on improving this year is my lenses, eyes, any kind of optical anything. We're going to make those look good this year. From here, I'm using one of the colors that I prefer to get from Vallejo, which is a bone white. I use bone white a lot. It ends up on a ton of stuff, Bone white is always going to be the paper on my purity seals, or any kind of paper. Works well on skulls, any kind of bone type thing, bone weapons or armor for Drukari. I also have even started using it as a base coat for pure white, because as I'm sure most people are aware, pure white or any white color is such a pain to deal with. The pigments are so thick, it ends up being chunky and textured. So now what I've started doing is laying down the bone white that's still thick but lays down smoother. I'm using that as my base coat and then going over it with a pure white, or edge highlighting it with a pure white, and that seems to work so much better than doing 20 coats of a pure white and still having it look chunky and just not all that great on a model, especially up close. From here you're going to see that he has changed a little bit. I did a lot of painting off camera, mostly because I was realizing a lot of the little stuff that I was doing, like the plasma gun, really should have its own tutorials and smaller videos broken up. So I believe that's what I'm going to do when it comes to those techniques, is make separate, smaller and shorter videos about that. There you can see one of my favorite washes, Reichland Flesh Shade. It's definitely the perfect color to go over gold, especially Retributor Gold. It just makes it stand out even more. It's a nice shade, and it just, I don't know if it's a reddish tint, but it makes the gold look so good. It makes it look like aged gold, used gold, and I absolutely love how it makes the Retributor armor work. It's a fantastic wash for any golds, and I use it every time. Moving on here, I'm just putting a red stripe on his helmet because I forgot that this guy was supposed to be more of a lieutenant type character, so I just completely forgot to base coat his helmet in red. So I decided a good option was just to pull a red stripe through, and that should be enough to cover him. And if you guys are wondering, one of the things that I am doing with this channel is using it as motivation to learn new techniques and to get my incredible backlog painted. Because as I'm sure most Warhammer fans, miniature wargaming fans, our purchases often tend to outpace what we can actually paint, especially someone like me who is a very new and very slow painter. My backlog of things that need painted is just enormous. I have a lot of stuff that I thought was just cool that I wanted to paint, or stuff that I found on sale, and yeah, it's just really big, and it's hard to get all that done. And it's hard to stay motivated, even though I enjoy painting and I love it. Sometimes when I look at a mountain of projects, it's very overwhelming. And for me, I am a bit of the kind of person who bounces between projects. I love starting projects, but I have such a hard time finishing projects. So that's where I'm at right now. We're going to do our best to finish some projects, get some things completed, and share with other new painters what I learn along the way. Enjoy!